5 top dealerships said his SUV's transmission was dead, and the repair cost more than the car itself. But when a struggling single dad took it to an old forgotten garage, one man saw something no one else did, and changed everything. What happened next shocked everyone. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and see the truth unfold. In Dallas, Texas, Jason Miller, a hard-working single dad, stood silently as the 5th dealership mechanic delivered the same crushing verdict. The words barely changed anymore. Transmission's gone, not worth fixing. The tone was always flat, rehearsed, as if they had said it 100 times before. The printed estimate in Jason's hands felt heavier than paper. It carried a number higher than the SUV's actual value. His fingers tightened slightly around the page, but he didn't argue. He was too tired for that. This wasn't just a car. It was his lifeline, the last reliable thing holding his fragile routine together. That SUV had been with him through everything. After his wife passed away, it became more than transportation. It became part of survival. It carried his daughter to school every morning. Through quiet streets where she would stare out the window, lost in thoughts, she never spoke aloud. It took them to hospital visits, grocery runs, and late-night drives when neither of them could sleep. Every mile held a memory. Every scratch told a story. Losing it didn't just mean inconvenience, it meant losing stability, something Jason had fought hard to maintain. The pattern had been the same at every dealership. A quick inspection, a short test drive, then the final judgment, dead transmission. No real explanation, no deeper look, just a conclusion followed by an expensive solution. Replace it or scrap the car. Jason had asked questions at first, trying to understand, trying to find hope in technical details. But over time, the answers became vague, rushed, and dismissive. Eventually, he stopped asking. When 5 different places tell you the same thing, doubt slowly turns into reluctant acceptance. But something inside Jason refused to give up completely. Maybe it was stubbornness, or maybe it was the quiet promise he had made to his daughter that things would be okay. With limited savings and no backup plan, he couldn't afford to replace the vehicle, and deep down he didn't want to, so instead of driving home, he turned the wheel in a different direction, heading across town to a place he had almost forgotten existed. A small, family-run garage called Henderson Auto Repair. The garage looked like it belonged to another era. The faded sign creaked slightly in the breeze, and the building's paint had long lost its shine. It didn't have the polished floors or modern equipment of the big dealerships. At first glance, it almost looked abandoned. Jason hesitated before stepping out of the SUV, wondering if he was wasting his time. But something about the place felt honest, quiet, unpretentious, untouched by the rush of profit-driven business. Taking a deep breath, he walked inside. Inside, he found Mr. Henderson, a man in his late 60s with grease-stained hands and calm, observant eyes. There was no rush in his movements, no sense of urgency to get to the next customer. He listened as Jason explained everything, nodding slowly, without interrupting. When Jason finished, he simply said, "Let's take a look." There were no promises, no dramatic reactions, just quiet confidence. It was the first time someone had actually taken the time to listen. After a short test drive, Mr. Henderson parked the SUV and sat silently for a moment, as if thinking through every detail. Jason waited, his chest tight with anticipation, expecting to hear the same verdict once again. But instead of concern, there was a faint smile on the old man's face. It wasn't mocking or dismissive. It was knowing. He turned to Jason and said gently, "Son, this isn't a dead transmission. Someone didn't look close enough." The words landed differently this time, carrying something Jason hadn't felt in weeks. Possibility. Jason blinked, unsure how to respond. After hearing the same diagnosis 5 times, hope felt unfamiliar, almost risky. "You're sure?" he asked quietly, his voice carrying both doubt and desperation. Mr. Henderson nodded, already reaching for his tools. "I've seen worse," he said. "Sometimes the problem isn't what people think, it's what they don't take the time to find." There was no sales pitch, no exaggerated claim, just simple truth backed by years of experience. As Jason stood there watching, something inside him shifted. For the first time in weeks, the weight on his shoulders felt just a little lighter. Maybe the car wasn't beyond saving, maybe not everything was as broken as it seemed. And in that small, aging garage, surrounded by the scent of oil and metal, Jason felt something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in a long time. Hope, quietly flickering back to life. Mr. Henderson lifted the hood and got to work with a calm precision that immediately felt different from the rushed inspections Jason had seen before. He didn't jump to conclusions or reach for expensive tools right away. Instead, he listened to the engine, to the subtle vibrations, to the story the vehicle was quietly telling. Within minutes, he traced the issue step by step, checking connections, fluid levels, and electrical responses. Then he paused, wiped his hands, and pointed to a small component. "There it is," he said. A faulty sensor paired with a clogged transmission filter, nothing close to the disaster others had claimed. Jason stood nearby, watching every movement with growing disbelief. After days of stress and disappointment, it felt almost unreal approached the problem with patience and understanding instead of assumptions. Mr. Henderson worked steadily, explaining things in simple terms as he went along. "Cars today rely on signals," he said. "If one sensor sends the wrong message, everything starts acting worse than it really is." Jason nodded, trying to absorb it all. No one else had taken the time to explain anything before. They had just delivered verdicts and bills. As the repair continued, Jason noticed something else. There was no urgency to upsell, no attempt to make the problem seem bigger than it was. Mr. Henderson replaced the faulty sensor, cleaned the clogged filter, and checked the transmission fluid carefully. Every step was deliberate, and almost methodical, like a craftsman restoring something valuable rather than just fixing a machine. The small garage echoed with the sounds of tools and quiet concentration, a stark contrast to the loud, impersonal dealerships Jason had visited earlier. 2 hours later, Mr. Henderson closed the hood and gestured for Jason to start the engine. There was a brief pause, a moment filled with silent hope, and then the SUV came to life, smooth, steady, and strong. Jason pressed the accelerator gently, and the response was immediate, seamless. It felt like a completely different vehicle. He stepped out, almost speechless, his eyes reflecting a mix of relief and gratitude he couldn't fully put into words. "That's it?" he asked, still unsure if it was real. Mr. Henderson gave a small nod, as if the outcome had never been in doubt. Jason hesitated for a moment before asking the question that had been building inside him. "Why did everyone else say the transmission was dead?" he asked quietly. The old man sighed, leaning against the workbench. "Some places don't fix problems anymore," he said. "They replace parts. And it's faster, more profitable, and requires less thinking." His voice wasn't angry, just honest, shaped by years of watching the industry change. Jason let those words sink in. It wasn't just about his car anymore. It was about trust, about the difference between doing a job and truly caring about it. He'd looked around the garage again, seeing it in a new light. What once seemed old and outdated now felt genuine, almost rare. Before leaving, he thanked Mr. Henderson sincerely, not just for fixing the SUV, but for giving him something far more valuable, a sense that honesty still existed where he least expected it. A few days later, Jason shared his experience with a local blogger, not expecting much to come from it. But the story struck a chord. People across Dallas, and soon across Texas, began to notice. The idea that 5 major dealerships could misdiagnose such a simple issue shocked many, while Mr. Henderson's quiet expertise inspired even more. The small garage that once stood unnoticed quickly became a place people sought out, drawn by something they felt they could trust. Within weeks, Henderson Auto Repair was busier than ever. Cars lined up outside, and customers came not just for repairs, but for reassurance. They wanted someone who would take the time to understand the problem instead of replacing everything blindly. Mr. Henderson didn't change his approach. He worked the same way he always had, focused and honest, treating each vehicle like it mattered. For him, nothing had changed, but for everyone else, it meant everything. As for Jason, life slowly began to feel stable again. His SUV was back on the road, carrying him and his daughter through their daily routines just as it always had. But something inside him had changed too. He no longer felt completely alone in his struggles. In the most unexpected place, he had found a reminder that good people still existed. People who valued integrity over profit and care over convenience. Sometimes the biggest solutions don't come from the biggest names or the most expensive places. Sometimes they come from those who are willing to look closer, think deeper, and care a little more. And in a world where trust often feels hard to find, that can make all the difference.